Hey everybody, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, also known as Twitter for all you youngins. We're here talking today with some of my friends in education, talking about promoting the student voice. So Jody, we're all ready to roll. Be easy on Danny and Amanda. Be kind, please. I don't want any hate mail sent back to me. Have fun, everybody.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Mark. Yeah, as Mark mentioned, we are joined by two power educators here in the state of Utah. We have Amanda Fawcett, who is a language arts and journalism teacher at West Hills Middle School in Jordan School District. And we have Danny Sloan from the UAN joining us again today. Again, she's from the professional development team that supports teachers across the state using all kinds of tech tools and things in their classrooms. So grateful to have you both joining us today. Amanda is a brand new user to Canvas. She got to jump into Canvas as we have had to move to remote learning. And we wanted to highlight a few things that she's been doing in her classroom as a brand new user, but also just really, as Mark said, promoting that student voice. As we all know, rich classroom discourse offers students a way to express their ideas, their reasoning, their thinking, and helps to deepen their understanding of course content. During this time of remote learning, it also encourages them to keep in contact with their classmates and with their teachers, which is really important during this time. So I'm going to actually go ahead and turn the time over to Amanda. Amanda, tell us a little bit about what you have done in your classroom, specifically your remote classroom now here within Canvas, to really enhance the discourse and make sure that students are continuing to have conversations and deepen that learning.
Well, the first thing I need to say is I wasn't trying to be or make it over the top, and I don't think I was ready for that one way or the other. When I gave out the assignment, we were finishing our quarter, but then with having to come and start online education, we had to kind of adapt. They had made 1960s presentations about the 1960s, and then they were supposed to present it to the class. We've been working on their speaking and listening skills. So with the speaking skills, I picked the video and I could grade them that way, but the listening skills were a little bit harder to grade because how do I know if they're paying attention or what they're getting from the presentation? So this assignment on the Canvas, I saw that there was a nice option called peer review, and you could assign how many peer reviews the students have to do. I clicked on that and I said, we'll see what happens. It was kind of awesome what we got. A lot of students had hard times. First thing we tried. It didn't work 100%, but I did like from right at the get-go, we set up that we're still going to be communicating with each other, working on each other's efforts. And so for those of the students who were able to upload their video and for the students who were able to figure out, were able to learn about the 1960s, and they were able to give some good feedback about how to make the presentation better communicate their ideas. And so I like that feature that you can assign peer reviews. You can even assign which students have to review which video. Do them randomly, pick the subjects they were interested in, because I wasn't quite sure how to do it at the beginning.
That's so amazing, Amanda. Can I first of all say, I am just amazed at your attitude. I love that you were like, what is this peer review thing? We'll try it out. Click and went for it. So I think that's awesome and brave. And it worked out so well for your students.
Yeah, Amanda, really I'm curious. I mean, how many... Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, the students were used to commenting on each other's presentations. This wasn't the first presentation we'd done in the class. We do one a quarter. So I think it was send or in the class. We can't just throw completely new things at them, but changing the manner in which we do things isn't too horrible. It builds on what we've already been doing. And so I think that's an essential thing to keep in mind as well, is that you can't just expect miracle. But a lot of the comments that I got, for example, were similar to what we gave in class. For example, a lot of them would say you and you're putting on your slides, you need to speak up or make sure you're looking out. You have good tone, things like that. We've been talking about these presentation skills that were so important that came back again because they're always going to be things that students need to work on.
Smart.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these comments, and the content of them proves that you've obviously done this in the classroom and that you've created a safe environment for students to give feedback. I'm curious how you decided the number of peer reviews for students to do, and it might have been just that you decided just a random number for this first one, and then also how you might change that for your next.
Well, I clicked 5. I usually presentation, but I was also being conscientious of how many kids would struggle getting them up on time. I didn't let it all. Some students just ended up just emailing me their presentations. So it wasn't without difficulty to decide how many they should have to do. And I have to admit, a lot of it's kind of hard to get as a feedback as well. But I also think it's because I didn't make an assignment that they had to review. So that's something I've been doing a lot of discussion boards and things like that with my journalism class, and I find the more clear I am with what I expect to get back, the better they were. I think if I was to go forward, I'd be very clear about what kind of comments I expect, how many of them I expect their grade, or it does count as part of their participation on this assignment, or somehow factor it in as assignment. Because for the kids who did it, they were kids who also uploaded. Same thing. The kids that kind of figured out the technology were more likely to get involved in the discussion and in the peer edits. A change in the future is to be a little clearer in what I expect in the comments, and I might be more, because a lot of kids got all the comments and some presentations didn't get any. And so I think it would be better in the future if I was to assign who was.
I think that's a really good reflection.
Absolutely. So Amanda, I'm curious also how you mentioned that you would like to make it more of a mandatory portion of their assignment and their grade. So how are you handling for those students that may not have technology or who are sharing one device in their class, in their homes, which are their classrooms now?
Well, that's the thing I like about discussions and about the is time limit on how long you can do that. You can turn it in late just like you can any other assignment. So I do like that aspect. Class, you miss out completely on participation points, and you can go at your own speed. And so I think just keeping the discussion board open longer is a good thing. Put it out until I'm putting mine out until the end of the quarter, just in case, so that students do have that extra time to figure out the technology and to. That's actually something that works a little bit better than even in class commenting. In class commenting, if you're absent that day and it was a listening activity, you just. If it's a listening activity, you can go in, do the listening, and then comment at your own leisure time.
Yeah, that flexibility is nice to have.
I especially think it's really nice of you to be overly flexible with your students right now, because we are all going through a lot and our kids are too. And so giving them that flexibility to do it when they are maybe mentally prepared to work on schoolwork is really great. I'm wondering, what are you doing for your students who are still struggling with uploading into Canvas? How are you helping them kind of log on and get past that hurdle?
My students have gotten on with it by this time. Some of them aren't spending as much time on Canvas as they probably should. Some of them clock 4 or 5 minutes, so kind of interesting there. I guess I'm staying in contact. I've made a lot of phone calls home to students. them individually.
Mhm.
I've emailed their parents. I guess being flexible is part of it. You have to help normal education situations. There are going to have to be some flexible things. We can't have such strict deadlines. We log in at this time because that's not doable for some families in some situations. So that flexibility is also good to know that it's going to take time. It's a learning curve, and some students need you to literally take them step by step. Better than me, actually. They could probably do this a heck of a lot better than I can. And they've already jumped on board, and they're doing amazing things. Different levels, but that's how it's always been in education. Kids have always been on such a wide spectrum that you just learn to adapt and help the kids. And it has meant being flexible. I let some of them turn it in on Google Classroom. I let some of them email it to me because they couldn't add some presentation on Google presentations. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we can do it. I think moving forward, I do want them to get familiar with turning things in, because at the end of the quarter, it got really discombobulated trying to look in 6 different spots for where they might have submitted. I think that was essential at the end of the quarter because they're worried about their grades. They're worried about everything going on in the world. And flexible with how we're doing it, it might just take a little less stress off.
I really appreciate your message of flexibility. I think that's really nice.
Yeah, I also applaud you for recognizing that students are coming from different places, and even more so than typically in a classroom. It's clear that you understand accommodating the needs of your students, and especially during such an unprecedented time. So kudos to you for that. So Amanda, I know you mentioned also that you've been using discussion boards. You mentioned that here in this live chat, and then also before when we've talked. Tell me a little bit about how you're using those discussion boards and what you're seeing from your students there.
Well, I've been using them primarily. Class is just finishing up our class novel at the end of the quarter. But in my journalism class, we were moving into our discussion on how the First Amendment affects students. So we were going to cover the First Amendment, and we were going to get into the discussion of how it affects school, how schools limit the First Amendment, how some people think that further limits are needed on the Constitution, how many people do not, and the discussion on that one. And this was one of my favorite parts. We get such rich discussion on this one, and students are very opinionated on it. I mean, the First Amendment's a huge deal with our country and with. And so I love this discussion, and I was very disappointed that the pandemic hit when it did. So we've been doing discussion boards on it, and I really loved what's been happening. I will pose a couple questions, and we'll teach a lesson like, which is the First Amendment. These are the ways that it's limited. These are the ways that it's allowed. Do you think that this is fair or not? And they get into some interesting discussions. Swear, the right to wear what they want to wear, the right of students to, I guess, talk about their political, to wear religious symbols and things like that. I had someone talk about the posters that kids put up in the hall when they're going for student body officer and why. It's been interesting to see what they feel, and I feel that the students have actually been putting forward a lot more ideas on how to change things, or if change than they usually do in class.
One of the things that I love about discussion boards is that it kind of can even the playing field a little bit, because students get extra think time than they would in class. And then you can use that little button that says students can't see any other replies until they post their own. So there's none of that, hey, they took my answer. Are you seeing maybe more engagement than you would in a classroom discussion, or maybe from different people that would normally speak up?
I think so. I have one student in my journalism class who doesn't speak any English at all. And so it's been interesting to see how she takes she really went all out in putting in her comments. And so that was interesting as well, to see that given more time able to speak out, when I don't think she's tried to talk at all. I mean, she's only been in our country about 2 months, and she just doesn't have the language.
Amazing.
So it gave her a voice that I don't think she's had so far in my class. Happy with that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, tugging at those teacher heartstrings right there for sure. So, Amanda, how do you balance out
Students,
the use of these? Oh, sorry, go ahead. I cut you off again. I think we have a little bit of delay.
It's also think their comments through a little bit more. They're not just the rushed one-word answers or half a second answers. These are thought out at a page. They're not just rushed, or I guess you can say ill thought out. Whatever everyone else thinks. And like you said, that button of making people think for themselves before they can see what everybody else is saying, I really like that feature as well. I feel like they have to just parrot what they're being told or what their peers are saying. It teaches them they have to kind of think for themselves, and I think it's such a valuable skill.
That might be my favorite button in all of Canvas.
Good to know. I was trying to do my teacher wait time to make sure we didn't have that delay still this time. So, Amanda, is there anything else that you do with these discussions to balance out the amount that students are responding to each other versus responding just to your initial post, or that you are responding to students individually? How do you manage all of that?
Well, that's the nice thing about student commenting and stuff like that. I think students can say things for me. I necessarily have to go in and type in a whole response. If a student said it just as well as I could, I'll just click, yep, that's right, or way to go, or I don't need to go in and give them the exact same comment again when it's already been said. That's one reason I think peer edits and discussion boards are so valuable in the long run, because students are getting feedback. It's just not necessarily from you. It's from a different source, and surprisingly, it's seriously than you sometimes, because they really value what their peers have to say about their work and their thinking. They want to know how their things fits in with those that they, I guess, are looking for validation from. They want to know how they fit in with their parents or not, which is an interesting conundrum. It's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time that kids are looking for that confirmation on their ideas. But I like that it saves me time, because getting feedback from if a student notices that a presentation is nothing but slides of text, and then one of their peers on this, I don't have to go in and type the same comment. I can just grade it, and so it saves me the time. I think getting feedback is important. I just don't necessarily think you have to give the exact same feedback that's already been given.
Right.
So, Amanda, can you think of anything else that you're doing in your classroom that is helping to continue this discourse that you would normally have in the classroom setting, but are doing remotely now, or any other points of interest that you would like to share with other teachers who are just getting used to, or even just jumping into Canvas, or remote learning, maybe not even through Canvas for the very first time?
Well, be trying those online Skype type classes using different apps when we get back. I haven't tried one of those yet. I'm still a little nervous for that. But Canvas as well. I've never tried it before, and sometimes you just have to jump in and see how it goes. It may not be perfect, but As such, we just experiment, and if it works well, we take what works well and we magnify it. If it doesn't work, we not what can we do different next time? And so I think that's what I'm kind of doing with Canvas. Some things I've done have flopped on their face. Some things I'm changing them. It's an evolving art. It's something that doesn't just stay static. You have to work with it. And there isn't has been there, never will be. And so I think the best thing we can do as educators is just say, try it. If it works on something, and I'll know how to better apply it for the next assignment I want to give out that's similar to this. If it doesn't, I'll say, well, that sucked. And you figure out how to make it better. But you kind of just have to be willing to jump in and see, is this going to work, or is this something? Say, well, we gave a good try. Not every class we give is going to be amazing, but it is worth trying something and to show us. You never know, it might just motivate them to be willing to try something new as well.
Amanda, that is amazing. Teachers are such incredible innovators. And in this time, I think we're really seeing that. And I think your comments are just amazing, not just for using Canvas the first time or in this weird period where we're all of a sudden distance learning, but just education as a whole. So I just appreciate your positivity and your great attitude, growth mindset so much. You're awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the same words that were coming to mind for me, was innovator, growth mindset, reflective practitioner, all those things, right, that we try to be as teachers. And Amanda, your attitude about all of this is just so inspiring. So thank you so much.
Thank you as well. I think it's important that don't expect, no one is expecting perfection from anyone. We don't expect it from our students. And I think it's important that we also realize it's okay to flop. I mean, if we don't flop a couple times, we're probably not doing it right.
Or you're not trying.
Absolutely. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us and just sharing some of the things that have worked, and also reminding us of the importance of continually moving forward. And even when things are not fantastic or perfect, it's okay, and to keep on keeping on. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the rest of this time that we're doing this remote learning.
You're welcome. Have a great day.